I think so.
I don't
He'll
know
slowly
how
drift,
much
remember?
Yeah, I know he does, and it's annoying.
What?
That
What
or
do I
his
do?
camera drifts.
His
Oh,
camera
my
slowly drifts.
Yeah.
My camera drifts because it's not like it's just a webcam that's on the monitor and it just slides.
All
Breaking
good.
back
Geek
to
Radio, the podcast, Tokyo Drift.
If you want, I
good.
can stand instead. If I stand, hold on. This is where I stand instead. Is this preferred?
That does look better in frame.
Okay, let's do it.
But yeah, I mean, I'm standing.
I'm a stander.
I'm 100% disabled, and I'm standing, Jammer.
I
How does that
do
make
a
you
live.
feel?
Makes me feel nothing. I'm running barefoot shoes now, Kyle. I don't deal with padding.
Those are a thing again.
They're not like not
Those are
the finger
Jammer's
shoes.
only thing.
They're not the finger shoes.
Okay, they're not that one. Okay.
No, they're just
toe
flat.
shoes.
Super thin.
No, they're not toe shoes. That's what I was saying.
But there's no such thing as finger shoes because toes don't
I
have
knew
fingers.
I knew what he meant, Nick.
That's true. I was getting
Holy crap.
semantics.
Can you guys ready to get started? Because I'm excited to hear after the Scream 6 review just how right Kyle always is.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Breaking Geek Radio, the podcast, the flagship, international, and premier podcast of LRMonline.com and the Genreverse Podcast Network. I am one of your hosts, Joseph Jammer Medina, joined by my illustrious sidekick, Nick Dahlman.
Hello, I'm the sidekick, Nick Dahlman.
And today we got a lot of great stuff for you to talk. Today, Nick is going to be talking about Scream 6 exclusively, and then we have a lot of other Disney / Warner Brothers woes or Warner Brothers wins to discuss regarding Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. But first things first, Nick. Wait, hold on. Let's talk about the movie that you were like, oh, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about Scream. So you saw Scream.
No, I didn't make it.
I did not see Scream.
I didn't make it.
Oh, none of us seen Scream.
I made it.
That's interesting.
You did. You
Obviously,
had to show
I
tickets.
it.
Yeah. I
could have canceled
you're
it
playing
out
it
of
up for the
spite.
audience. At first, I'm like,
I could have canceled it out of spite. I thought about saying like, hey, I didn't make it because I got off work late and there were maybe 2 other showings, but I didn't bother going to see those anyway. So anyway, but yeah, Scream 6 came out, and you know it is the latest in the franchise that is both comedic, thrilling, and horrific all at the same time, and relatively well received by critics and fans alike for the most part. I think there's literally one exception in the franchise, and that is Scream 3. Everything else, I believe, has been fairly like everyone's liked on some level. And me personally, it is a franchise I saw the first 3 for and then stopped caring about. Not just because 3 sucked, but also because I don't like slasher movies that much. I don't like slasher movies. Horror movies are okay. Like if I get a good horror movie, I can be on board with it. But I don't really like movies where people just get picked off one by one. It's usually not my thing. And so that's kind of the perspective that I'm coming from. It's like when I saw Cocaine Bear and I was like, oh yeah, this is the experience that I'm going to be getting with Cocaine Bear. And I went to the theater. I'm like, that's exactly the experience that I got. Didn't make me like it much more. It's just not for me. I kind of was expecting that with Scream 6. But before we get into my opinions, Nick, as someone who adores the franchise so much that he made the rest of the podcast watch the first one again in an episode, only not to show up on that episode. Can you tell me what you thought of Scream 6?
yes. Here,
Give me your Twitter review. Your Twitter review of the 6th installment.
Like another 90s starting franchise, Mission Impossible, Scream has had its SAG, but it's a franchise that keeps. I see one and I keep thinking, like, what could they possibly do next? And then they do something worthwhile and entertaining.
Okay.
Boom.
So for me, I would say, in spite of not liking the slasher genre, Scream 6 is still a whole lot of fun to watch. Solid filmmaking, solid performances, an okay script, but enough fun surprises to keep me interested along the way. So I think fans of the franchise will probably be pleased with this. So that's my initial review. But I know all of you want to hear us talk more
Letter grades.
about the spoilers. But before we do that, letter grades. Nick, what is your letter grade?
B+.
I give it a B-.
Impressive.
But you could probably take off. You could probably chalk up about like a one segment of a grade to me maybe not being into slashers that much. Like people go like, oh, they're creative deaths. I'm like, I don't care about creative deaths. In fact, I could do without the creative deaths. You can literally just have a still that says this person dies, and then I move on, and I feel like I would like that more. I just don't like to see that stuff that much. But
this thing has got a 93 audience score on Rotten Tomatoes right now. 79 from critics.
Audience went crazy at my nearly sold out screening.
They did not go crazy on my screening. Admittedly, and this is sad, literally, I pick smaller showings partially for the reason because I don't want to be in a theater shooting. I am saying that 100% unironically. And I'm just like, if I go to the smaller showing, no one else will be there. So stupid. But that's where we live now. That's what it is. So... honestly, especially in Scream,
while watching Scream, I'm like, how come no one's imitated Scream yet?
No, okay, Nick, don't put that out there. Don't put that out there, Nick.
It's not putting it out there. That's just I had similar thoughts to you sitting in a sold out movie theater.
Legitimately putting it
out there. That's what the movies are about.
That's true. Okay, so your letter grade is a B+, mine's a B-. Let's go ahead and jump into spoilers for Scream 6. First things first, I have questions for you.
I was gonna ask, do you know anything about, like, did you show up in time for the previously on 4 and 5?
I did
they
not.
They didn't even do the first 3 because this is basically it's a sequel to the requel, which is really interesting. Now that we're fully in spoilers, and this might help you a little bit. It actually has the same killer style as the second one, where the killer is the parents of one of the killers of the first movie. Which they did in Scream 2.
I don't remember the second one doing that. I just remember the second one.
Well, I thought that was kind of funny, especially when they're like, that one character loves to try to figure out who it was because she was... Anyway, your questions, because you haven't seen Scream 4
or so my questions 5. Are, I noticed partway through the movie, the main character played by the girl from In the Heights, whose name escapes me, she started seeing visions of what I think was Billy from the first one. Is that correct? And he seemed to imply that she was a killer. Please explain.
He starts showing up to her in the first movie when she goes back home.
You mean the fifth movie?
Yeah, the fifth movie. The requel.
I know. I'm just making sure it's clear because we're also getting
beginning of a new trilogy
from the fourth one.
Yeah.
No, the beginning of the new trilogy. There's a fifth. That's the fourth one, right?
Well, that's why I was like, do people like Scream 4 when you were saying that? Because Scream 4 was supposed to be a new trilogy and it flopped. So
well, maybe people liked it. People can like it after it flops.
Yeah. But I remember being mediocre, but I rewatched it. But
don't get off course. I asked a question. I want an answer.
Well, she finds out in the first one she's a love child of Billy Loomis, or the fifth one.
And who?
I was her dad and her actual mom, and then Jenna Ortega. We never meet the mom.
Oh, okay.
And then she starts seeing him, and at the end, Huey from you don't watch the
Huey?
No, I was the Huey from The Boys. Jack Quaid, who you see on the phone and stuff, is the killer. She's one of the killers, but instead of like the typical...
Hold on.
No,
what?
Oh, I'm getting there. Instead
I don't know what you're talking about. Who's Jack Quaid from what?
It's from like The Boys and a bunch of other stuff. But anyway.
Oh, okay.
You know, the dad of we see his face in this one on the phone, and his dad is. But the point is, I got a little off topic. It's typical Scream movie. You shoot someone, and then you have to like double tap him in the head because they always come back. She stabs him like 39 times and then slowly slits his throat like a serial killer. She doesn't just like kill him.
Got it.
Kind of like what she ends up doing in this one when they're like, oh, we can just let him live. And then her sister's like, yeah, but he hurt our family.
Right. Other questions I have. Okay. So it was very much hinted at. So you have the other siblings who were also in the last one, I'm assuming, based on the core 4 dynamic that they had going on there.
Core 4.
So those two are back. We also Let's see,
Kirby.
those two.
Oh, those two.
You can't just say a name. I have to know who it is because I don't know names very well.
Hayden, the
FBI
agent.
She's from the fourth one. She's from the fourth one. No, but I'm talking about. So the core four there, they survived. There were a lot of people who died. God, I forgot my question. Damn it. Oh well. So here's my next question. Did you like Hayden Panettiere's character, or did she seem totally like she was in a completely different movie?
She was fine. I didn't really think of it too much.
I felt like she was acting weird the whole time. Like she was putting on a show. It almost felt like she was in a Disney Channel original movie. It was weird.
Yeah, you're right. Especially after just watching Scream 4 the night before.
Did she act like that in the
movie?
No,
she doesn't. That's why I'm saying. Especially after watching Scream 4 the night before, it does felt weird. But I thought that was kind of part of the misdirection. Okay, when they fake reveal that she is the killer, you're like, I knew it.
Yeah, it was. I think the movie itself is pretty good. Its filmmaking is really good. How they portray the killers. I think they had a lot of good fun twists and turns, but there are a couple parts that felt disingenuous to me. For example, as it's revealed, it's not only the father of the previous killer, but it's also the siblings. Both of whom are roommates. One of whom is the roommate of the main character, and one of whom is the roommate of Chad, one of the siblings, right? And sorry if this is spoiling for you, Kyle. I don't know if you saw this movie.
He would have gotten off the headphones if he cared. Okay.
So they were the roommates. So it's a trio of killers, and it's funny. And all the badass
first time,
all the moments that I feel like it was like a really badass version of the Ghostface killer, I just imagine it was the dad, because he's the only one who seemed to have like actual physical capable prowess compared to the other two who were like really like lanky. Yeah, and he seems.
Well, that's always the thing in the franchise too, where it's like the same. I think the same actor always plays Ghostface. Not that it really matters, but like it's always like the physicalness of a man, and then it's like there's a little girl as one of the killers in this. And the fifth one, and you're like, what? That's not.
Well, that's the thing for this one.
5-foot girl. Yeah.
When they were saying that Hayden Panettiere was the killer, I'm like, but she's tiny. And the Ghostface killers were huge. All of them were tall, and it made sense. All of them were tall though in this one. Like they all, even the girl character, she was tall too. So it was totally. I bought on that front. What I did not buy is some of the twists because they felt disingenuous. For example, that fake reveal was the cop saying, "Oh, she's not in the FBI. She was discharged months ago. She's on."
And I was like, "Why didn't they know that earlier?"
No. Let me go back. But it was also the moment where when no one else was there, looking at camera, he says to the cop, "Give me all the intel on this girl here." Why would he be doing that? That makes no sense.
That part made sense to me because she was attached to the first one. And I don't know. I would have been suspicious too of her being the cop.
But you're the killer. But you're the killer in that instance.
True.
Yeah, so that doesn't make any sense.
That's for the audience. Super.
Yeah,
easy.
Exactly. There was a lot of those, and there was another one where Pugsley from She-Hulk, who I think that is, he was the boyfriend across the way.
That's where I recognized him from. Yeah, that is him. I'm like, where the hell do I know this guy from?
Because the way he talks is very specific. Where he kind of talks like this, like it's really weird. And anyways, that moment where he was seeing the killer kill the roommate and taking photos of it. In retrospect, he was watching essentially someone put on an act, but when they threw her through the window or through the door, she had her throat slit, which, could be makeup, but he wouldn't have seen her like killing. He would have seen them putting on fucking prosthetics in order to make it believable that she was killed. So it's also moments like that where like that doesn't quite make sense because he's supposed to be witnessing a murder, not a makeup session. Or even if he like did it quickly and just made it look violent, I don't buy it. It's weird. And it's another for the audience moments. And that between that and I think the number of fake out deaths, there are a lot of stabbings. Surprisingly, not a lot of deaths, not a lot of important deaths. We have two murders in the intro, and I think only one character of consequence actually dies, and that was a throwaway character. I'm talking about the girlfriend.
Love that twist.
What
very,
twist?
Very beginning. Or it's
Oh
like,
yeah,
we're gonna
at the
show you
intro.
Ghostface fate, like who it is immediately.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
like,
thought that was
this will
really
be fun to
cool.
play with, but
Yeah,
it
we
wouldn't
get
have
to
worked
see
for
him
the
like
franchise. But
it could
Flash
have. Wouldn't that be
Thompson.
cool to see it from Here's the thing. I don't know if it's Flash Thompson or his brother because I know they look a lot
shit.
alike. I think he has a sibling who looks almost exactly the same, and I'm always like, are they the same? Like, how much do they look alike? I'm gonna look this up really quick. But yeah, that was a really cool twist because I was like, are we following the whole movie like this, or is just the intro of him getting killed? Like, how much is he going to be involved in it? Ultimately, he ended up dying in the opening, like the grand opening or whatever. But it was still cool to see, and it was like, oh, the mystery thickens. Why is this Ghostface killer killing him? I thought it was a really cool intro,
Especially where there's like for a while, you're like, she even asked the questions, is like, are you saving on me? And he's like, no, only so I can kill you myself, you dumb bitch. You know, whatever.
I don't think he said that.
No, I think that's a joke from Scary Movie.
I was about to say you're doing the Scary Movie voice, not the actual voice of Ghostface here.
Holy crap, Jammer, you're not lying. I'm sharing that with the audience. The brother Mario Quinones Jr. and Tony Revolori, the MCU.
Or something.
Yeah, the MCU's Flash Thompson. Yeah, they're if you cut their hair alike, kept their facial hair, yeah, that's like twins. That's crazy.
I think it's the brother then, because their voice is slightly different.
Is it? I'm gonna look it up right now.
Just because the voice is different. Yeah, they get to play variants.
Oh, which one's in the movie? Damn,
yeah,
I should look.
I'm looking it up right now.
I was just looking up how similar they.
It's Tony Revolori.
So it is Flash Thompson or not?
It is.
Oh, okay.
Is. Yeah, but I'm always unsure every single time I see them. Is this him or is it not him? I'm never confident and I never look it up. So yeah, I got to take a look at that later. But yeah, I think they had a funny moment in this movie as well where she put Ghostface on hold. I thought that was really funny.
Oh yeah,
he's like, wait, what?
Gale Weathers. I keep wanting to call her Carl Weathers. I don't know. It's because I've been watching Mando.
What was your favorite moment in this movie?
I'll tell you.
I
really like.
I appreciate you're going to tell me.
I just really enjoyed that. My second favorite Mission Impossible actor was in this movie. Most people didn't even notice.
Who's that?
The guy who plays Kittredge in the first one, who's finally coming back in the new one. For the only surviving character from the first movie, except for Luther, is
you have to. You're using a lot of names. Okay, there you go. That's
I was like, I recognize this dude, and that was one. I don't know, the face kills. I'm not into gore and stuff either, or even the slasher franchise. I just enjoy Scream movies because they're clever. So that was fun kill. And then I guess my favorite part of the movie overall, the ending was really cool, and all the mythology of like, because the last movie was about like toxic fandom. That's why they did the killings in the last movies. Are like, they don't like. There's a joke where Rian Johnson directed the 8th one, and it's fucking terrible. So they're like, because they're like, the Knives Out guy directed it. It was like bullshit. But so they in this last movie they do the killings because they need new source material for more movies, because the fans are always right and the filmmakers have no idea what the fans want from the Stab franchise. So I like they kind of brought this into this one a little bit, but I liked even more the similar message of like. And it was kind of too obvious in a way where it's like, we were the ones who ruined your life with rumors. Like, no one else started that. We did that. And then we went to kill you, with the people thinking that she was behind it. The main character whose name escapes me too. But I like the idea. It's where it's like, yeah, just one lie and everyone believes right? it. There's Samantha, Samantha. But yeah, it's like the whole idea where it's like, I mean, it's in our time, it's present. I mean, it's early in the morning. Sorry. It's, works with our times. The idea of like, yeah, you spread one lie in the internet, enough people believe it, and that's it.
One thing I do wish is I wish that somebody commented on the fact that of how many landlines Gale has. Like everyone else has a cell phone, and she just has like landlines all around her house. And I'm just like, get that shit out of here. I mean, it makes sense because of her age. So she's
my
older,
parents
so
still
she
have
probably
two.
does have landlines. Yeah. My parents don't have landlines anymore, which is crazy. But I know for the longest time, they're like, why don't you have a landline? It's like, we don't have a landline because we don't need it. Landlines are useless.
And obviously Ghostface called the landline intentionally, because that's
Right.
Just an old school thing, even though it's always a different person, but they're always like, and I also liked in that part where it's like, I've never called you before. Because you're like, oh shit, she's never been on the phone with Ghostface for like 5 movies. But
oh yeah, it's funny because I was wondering if that was supposed to mean that this is somebody from the past, or if he just knows that this call she never spoke to Ghostface on the phone.
Everyone knows the stories.
Everyone, yeah. Once again, who knows how much of that is reflected in the movies, the Stab movies specifically. How much is mythologized versus made up, that take as gospel, etc. One thing I also didn't like. So I want to go back to one thing. How did you feel about the number of fake out deaths? So let's count the number of fake out deaths. We had the guy who plays Chad.
Who got stabbed last time too.
He got stabbed like a lot of times. They were going.
I thought his was dead. And like I said, he was a fake out death in the last movie too.
So he was okay. So he's a fake out death there, and then we have Hayden Panettiere. Was she a fake out death? Do you consider, or it's one of those things where you get stabbed enough, you should be dead. Let's go with that. So Hayden Panettiere.
She got shot.
Chad. She got shot. Oh yeah, she got shot.
We didn't see that. Yeah.
And she got stabbed too. Remember, she says, "Sorry, I have to take this," and she takes the knife out from under her. From in her. I don't think funny. Mindy was a fake out death because Mindy was an obvious die. But
and they never told us about Gail. She had a low heartbeat. They never mentioned.
Yeah, they did.
Gail
they said
died
they said she's pulling through.
Okay.
And she definitely shouldn't. She definitely should have died.
I thought so too, but they did their legacy kill in the last one.
Oh yeah, Dewey.
Dewey got gutted in the last, like the way we were like, yeah, because he's been a fake out kill in at least 2 other movies.
Mm-hmm.
But
so yeah, there was like at least 3 fake out kills, and I'm like, I get it on some level, but if your stakes are deaths, I feel like you just shouldn't go the fake out kill death, the fake out kill. You should do something else. So that kind of annoyed me, even though I also kind of liked it because I like the dynamic that the quartet, I guess, has. And even though
Core 4,
the 2
is that what they call themselves?
Core 4. Even though the 2 siblings, I feel like, are shallow characters, I couldn't tell you one thing about them other than he's muscly, she knows movies. That's it. It's the only thing I can know about those 2. I think Sam and Tara are interesting characters. I think they're strong and they work, but everything else around them is really kind of flat. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a huge critique because I think it works given the content of the show, and it kind of helps me mentally desensitize myself towards potential deaths. But, if that's just kind of how I feel about it. Did you have any critiques about the movie anyway? Why not an A? Why not an A+? Why not the Nick Dahl A+ seal of approval?
Well, I can't remember what I gave the last one, and it's not as good as the last one. So the last one was probably an A. So that's why I gave this one a B+ because I thoroughly enjoyed it. Faults and all. You're never going to a Scream movie being like, this is going to be perfect. No. In fact, until the reviews came out, I was terrified that it would be. Even when they announced it, I'm like, well, this one's going to be shitty because they had nothing else to say. But I'll be seeing it. They're not super into who the villains were, who the Ghostface ended up being. It's like, it's okay. But like I said, it's been done in 2. Billy Loomis's mother was the killer in number 2, and this one it's Richie. Is that the character's name? His dad and his siblings.
Richie's dad and siblings.
It's just also interesting that they all go from probably regular people to all being really murdery. But
I mean, they've always been murder. You never know who's a killer around you, Nick. You never.
But like Sam has it in her blood, and they've kind of played up the Dexter thing in this one, where it's like, oh no, is she like damaged goods? Is she gonna? Like,
I mean, she does kill him. She's killed twice,
but
obviously in self-defense, mostly.
Always in self, yeah. But yeah, I still enjoyed it a lot. I agree about the fake out kills, but I think I think the intention is to do a trilogy, and it's certainly made enough money. You kind of keeping the core 4 is kind of like the way they kept the core 3 for like up until 5 movies.
Yeah.
Or yeah, they got new friends and they died. Or even I think Jamie Kennedy survives the first and then gets killed in the second. So, and in case you didn't notice that they're actually Jamie Kennedy's niece and nephew, I think. the siblings, the brother and sister.
Oh,
they like
okay.
say like our dad was killed in a park, like in broad daylight. Because they're all the big deal of the fifth movie is it's like everyone's like, or at least someone has to be connected to the original thing. So you have Billy Loomis's kid, and then the niece and nephew of Jamie Kennedy. But overall, very enjoyable. I think it especially works better, more than Jammer really pointed out, if you've seen 5 at least, because this is a very direct sequel to 5.
I mean, I think it works overall because I was never really confused that much.
Okay, that's
like
good.
It was. I had
gonna
questions, but I was never like, what's happening? Like I got it. Like it stood alone fairly well. Like you could almost. It almost stands alone completely because, with the exception of the Billy Vision, I think you can piece together everything else and just kind of assume like a normal movie going in, where it's like, oh, I wonder what happened in her past, and how it gets kind of revealed throughout. I don't think it's I don't think it's a big problem. So if you haven't seen the other ones, you'll miss some of those little, like, I guess, Easter eggs, and there might be a moment where you have questions, but it's never like you never don't know what's happening. At least I didn't. I never knew. I never didn't know.
I'm impressed that you enjoyed it that much, because I was afraid you were going to get on here and hate it.
No. I try not to. I try to go in as much as I can with like objective. I know it's impossible to do that, as I proved with Cocaine Bear. But like, I think it's just
important. This would be
to...
Cocaine Bear again.
No, this is way less vicious to me than Cocaine Bear. I don't know why. Cocaine Bear was more horrifying to me than this is, easily. But yeah, I think this is also probably a better movie than Cocaine Bear. It just had better characters. It was just felt more connected. And my question is, where do you see the sequel going, if at all, anywhere? Because obviously a sequel's happening.
I have no idea. Just because, same with last time after the 5th one, I'm like, they have nothing left to say or nothing new to do, and then they changed the setting, and that's less meta than the past ones, but it's still funny where it's like, oh, now we're in a franchise, like where the legacy characters don't matter, and they spoil a bunch of requels if you haven't seen them. Right. But I don't know where they go next. I assume you stay in New York, because that was, I think, the most interesting change. It's the only time it's not in a small town.
Scream on a farm.
Scream in space.
Scream in space. Scream X.
Yeah, exactly. They are just like New York.
Jason
Switch.
X. They freeze. So it doesn't make sense because you can't scream one ghost face.
Space tourism is an actual thing now, so it's not that far off to just be like, oh, this is 2035 and it's happening on the first orbital hotel.
You have someone who's just like, I want to be the first person to be a serial killer in space. And then a part of it at one
elevate
point,
the franchise.
And a part of it is also he wants to be revealed and wants to be killed. So like he goes through a lot of stuff and then is just like, yes, it was me. Make me immortal. Immortalize me.
That's what most of them want.
Yeah.
But no, but then I don't think that'll work because in space nobody can hear you scream.
Oh my God, get out of here. All right. On that note, I think we're done. Do you have any final things to say about Scream 6?
Super enjoyed it.
Super enjoyed it. I think I did as well. So let's go ahead and jump into the illustrious news articles of the day, or the big news pieces that hit. A lot of it is some big studio business, big studio franchise business. As you know, over the course of the past several years, Lucasfilm has announced 187 Star Wars movies. And as it turns out, basically none of them are actually working out. At this time, before this news article hit, I think there was 4 currently in development. You had one from Kevin Feige, you had one from Patty Jenkins, you had one from Taika Waititi, and then you had one from oh my God, was it Lindelof? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and they still mentioned the Rian Johnson ones in the article. As far as,
but
so the ones that nebulously
I'm
exist.
sorry. I love Rian Johnson. I think he made the best Star Wars movie since The Empire Strikes Back. but there's no way he's doing another Star Wars movie. And I feel like you have to be a fool of a studio head to allow that to happen, because the fan base will literally shit itself and spread it all over the interior of the Millennium Falcon if they were to let him direct or even produce or be tangentially attached with another Star Wars movies. So anyways, bad news, or maybe good news, depending on your perspective. It sounds like, and then there were two. According to a new report from Variety, it's done-ish. We have these two movies, the one from Kevin Feige and the one from Patty Jenkins, are no longer happening. So So basically, they just learned that Kevin Feige is no longer in active development and Patty Jenkins is no longer active development. Doesn't mean they won't happen. It just means they're currently not really doing anything with it.
They told Feige, your house is a mess. Get over there and fix it before you even think about playing in a galaxy far, far away.
There's a couple of theories, with regards to that. Like, that was never overtly said, but can certainly be the case, because as of right now, as we all know, the general consensus with the Marvel Cinematic Universe's fourth phase, and I guess even the first movie in the fifth phase, which was Quantumania, is that, I wouldn't call it a train wreck, but it's definitely not beloved. It's definitely not great. It has its hits, has its misses. There's certainly a lack of quality control, or at least a perceived lack of quality control.
There was a lack of quantity control.
Boom.
There's plenty of quantity.
That's
the problem. There's too much, and you couldn't fund it in human capital, if you will, labor, workers, contracts, and things like that, especially for visual effects, and you couldn't afford it financially, as well. The financial calls that you guys are going to talk about, we'll talk about, and that goes back to what I said at the beginning.
Is this your time? He's like, I was right.
You didn't connect that dot there. Then you just left me hanging with a joke that took 32 minutes to pay off.
I thought the point was.
So
I didn't roll my eyes.
Well, yeah, but no one else knew what was happening, and I realized, this is not a good thing for me to bring up now. I'll bring it up later when it's relevant. So, as Kyle put it in the chat 32 minutes ago, about streaming and qual/quan, I'm right about business shit. Good for you, Kyle. Good for you. You what's it called? Your armchair quarterback.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was talking about what he actually literally said that people could see. Or before he did the intro, he's like, I was right, as always. And I'm like, fans of the show will know that Kyle is always right.
Anyways, my point is, Star Wars now has two feature films in development. And the quote having to do with this comes from Feige. He said, Star Wars, we made 3 what we call saga films, which is obviously the successors to George Lucas's first 6.
Feige
they did very well. Sorry,
Iger,
not
right?
Feige. Iger, sorry.
Okay.
Bob Iger, the head of Disney. They did very well at the box office, tremendously well, as a matter of fact. We made 2 so-called standalones in Rogue One and Solo. Rogue One did quite well. Solo was a little disappointing to us. It gave us pause to think maybe the cadence was a little too aggressive. And so we decided to pull back a bit. We are still developing Star Wars films. We're going to make sure that when we make one, it's the right one. So we're being very careful there. I will say that I hate people on how, like, back in 2018 or whatever, 2019, people are like, there's too many Star Wars things. And now there's like, we haven't had Star Wars in 2 years. What's going on? It's like, there's no pleasing people. It just annoys the hell out of me.
There's too many Star Wars shows.
Too many Star Wars. Yeah, there's a lot of Star Wars shows. But I haven't even touched more than an episode of the good one, which escapes me.
The great
Andor.
one. Andor.
Right, the good one, Andor.
Right.
The good one, Andor. No, well, I'm just saying that because, anyways. And I don't know. I think Solo, yes, it was disappointing, but it is weird to me that he's saying that was the one that gave them pause, because they had like 1,700 other announcements between that and the next one, I feel like. So, and who knows? They weren't really all announcements. I think some of them were leaks from like THR or Variety or something, just them exposing what's happening in the inner workings at Lucasfilm. But I don't know. What do you think, Nick? Is this good for you? Are you happy that they slow down and that they're pulling back, or are you disappointed? Do you think there is a way for them to effectively have Star Wars content on a more regular basis in theaters?
I'm glad that they're pulling back. Absolutely. I don't feel like we need one every year. I don't feel like we need one every 2 years. And I don't want another trilogy. Just take your time, develop some good ones, even if they don't turn out to be fan favorites or actually good, because it's kind of hard to legitimately be like, we have a good movie. Because if that were the case, everyone would make good movies. But time will help with that. And Taika Waititi, I'm glad his is one of the ones not on the chopping block, because like Marvel, I would say I would prefer to see less of it if it keeps it more magical of an experience to be able to see it.
So this kind of transitions into Disney's overall plan. And we've seen it. We're currently seeing it with Marvel a bit, with what comments have been made about, or I'm not sure they're comments as much as they're reports about a changing strategy and pulling back, specifically the number of TV shows that are being released each year on Disney Plus. And it also seems like Iger is understanding that we can't just throw a bunch of content at the wall, a bunch of money at the wall, and continue to take losses in the streaming service. Once again, Kyle was right. So here's what Iger had to say. I'm pleased that the support I'm getting from the content creators of the company, Disney Plus, is significant and real, and it comes in the form of reducing the expense per content, whether it's TV series or film, where costs have been skyrocketed in a huge way and not supportable, and not a supportable way, in my opinion. They all agree to that. Understanding how much volume we need, reducing how much we make, so it's how much we spend and what we make and how much we make. Then he went on to say, and as we look to reduce the content that we're creating for our own platforms, there are probably opportunities to license third parties. For a while, that was verboten or something we couldn't possibly do because we were so favoring our own streaming platforms. But if we get to a point where we need less content for those platforms and we still have the capability of producing that content, why not use it to grow revenue? And that's what we would like to do. So,
Nick,
in
more
short,
money. What?
It sounds like it's about not just throwing money at things. It's about taking a step back, confirming the quality of something before actually shooting forth with it. And who knows, that might ultimately mean you have maybe the same number of things in development, but ultimately move forward with fewer things after it's been sort of tested, as you understand what's going to sell. Like, is this a good story? Does this have an audience? Will it sell well? Is it marketable? Like, those are very important questions. So, I mean, the downside of this is we're probably going to see a lot fewer niche things on Disney Plus.
Like Jeremy Renovations.
Exactly. Yeah, like a lot of like those. Or I mean, who knows? How
reality
much those
shows
cost.
are cheap, man. You can make those super cheap, especially since he's already skilled and
but
stuff.
But maybe like fewer National
put a Marvel
Treasure
star in
TV
front of
shows. Maybe National Treasure TV show. I don't know how that's doing. But it's things like that. I feel like a scripted television that is original, they're probably going to do a lot fewer of those, which is disappointing. But given what we've been happening, it makes sense. I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Nick?
Not really. They're learning like every other network is. Kind of like we discussed last week with Star Trek Discovery, kind of getting the axe. We didn't go into the reasons as much, but it's because in the article for that one, it's like, well, Paramount's starting to realize that you kind of have to watch your money when spending on streaming shows, because Kyle was right.
Yeah, I mean, you could put content out there and they may come. If you put it there and they will come, then, but still, even if they do, you probably should take a look at the numbers and think, oh, even if they all do, even if all, $1.5 billion people in our potential market do arrive, is that going to pay for the budgets of these shows?
It's exactly the same thing as the Star Wars conversation, where it's like, just, you don't have to put something out every week. I know it's expected of most streaming services now, but like, just cool it, put out what's worth putting out, and let your backup library cover the rest.
Do you worry that this is going to lead to even fewer risks that they're taking? for example, maybe something like Andor wouldn't happen in this environment.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Kyle is agreeing off camera, just so the audience knows.
Even Mandalorian season 3 has a much more cartoony feel than the previous 2 seasons. They had elements, but the entire first episode of Mando was like a live action Clone Wars or Rebels cartoon, including the introduction of our space plant pirate overlord, Davy Broccoli. So
I like Davy Broccoli.
Is that an actual character, Davy Broccoli?
No, he looks like Davy Jones meets Swamp
Jammer.
Thing.
They put space pirates of the Caribbean, long coats, leather stuff, lots and lots of belts and buckles, long curve-handled pistols. They said a vast.
I actually don't think there's anything
Jammer,
wrong with that.
They said a vast in Star Wars. I knew you. Oh God, I hate
I'm not
you.
sure because here's the thing. It sounds stupid.
It does feel like a Star Trek thing.
But I mean, Star Wars is space pirates on some level. Like
yes, and we've had space pirates. Hell, Han Solo was a space pirate.
Yeah,
and they're not the
space pirate. It's a big
Caribbean.
galaxy, Kyle.
Oh my God.
It's a big galaxy.
I fucking hate you.
Look, I saw something the other day where they're like, it was a picture of Andor, and they're like, oh, the word shit is now canon in Star Wars. And then last night on Picard, he said fuck. And I was like, what? Like Patrick Stewart knows that word? Anyway, it's a big galaxy out there, Kyle. It did feel way more soft top. It did feel way more like Star Trek than Star Wars, just having literal space pirates.
I still need to watch Mandalorian. I haven't watched it because you know me. I feel like I've been more critical of the Mandalorian than anybody else.
You'll probably love this shit, Jammer. Just watch it so you can make my life miserable.
And episode 2 was great.
I heard episode 2 was dark.
It is, but it was great.
Visually, but it was
visually dark.
Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Like too dark, like Game of Thrones dark.
Everything's too dark now. They almost shoot no nighttime.
I know.
Right?
I hate.
Anyway,
it.
we are getting
they
way off.
We're getting way off topic
so much.
here. We're getting so off topic. I'm gonna skip the Marvel part of this, Kyle, and jump straight into Warner Brothers, the WBWs, specifically Warner Brothers wins or woes, depending on your perspective. We heard comments a bit ago where they're gonna treat Lord of the Rings kind of like Star Wars or franchises and all that, which is horrific.
I saw a tweet about that too. Where it's like, what do you call the first 6 movies, or at least especially The Hobbit? You do a trilogy and then you did a prequel trilogy. Like, you've already done Lord of the Rings
to Lord of the
Star
Rings.
Wars. Yeah,
it could be Frodo in the
Space.
Undying Lands.
Oh.
No, in the Undying Lands. He's just running around. I don't know if the Undying Lands.
Mushrooms, Pippin.
Have we seen the Undying Lands in the book? Does anybody read those books enough?
I have no idea.
Is. But anyways,
that's a Cam question.
Yeah,
that is certainly a Cam question. Anyway, so obviously there are some big franchises that are happening here between Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, and of course DC. So just a little touch base on that. This quote comes from WB Discovery CFO Gunnar Weidenfels or Wiedenfels. Apologies, I don't know how to pronounce that.
I don't know how to.
Probably Wiedenfels. I have no idea. DC is an enormous opportunity and 2 important building blocks in place now with the leadership team Peter Safran and James Gunn. And James has been breathing the comments for as long as he's been alive, essentially like a vampire. A great creative leader here. And the second building block that is in place is the one company approach. This is where we're segueing into everything, because I think you can only manage a franchise if everything is coordinated and the team is working together extremely well. There's an enormous level of collaboration and joint decision-making around what should work in hand across the franchise. Now, this is funny to me because I felt like this is something that we should have learned back in 2012 once the Avengers culminated. And yet it took another 11 years or I guess 10 years for this to happen before DC decided to finally move things over. But it looks like they're at least continuing their thinking into their other franchises. He continues to say, take Harry Potter as an example, the Wizarding World. The fact that we are enjoying this massive success with Hogwarts Legacy 12 years after the last film came out, shows that there was so much opportunity and we're only just starting to expand that. We've got the new Harry Potter tour coming up in Tokyo in the middle of the year. Long story short, I think this one company approach, great leadership in individual business unit, but coordinated franchise management is probably one of the biggest opportunities the company has. So
we're getting
I
Feige's
guess
for everything.
We're getting Feige's for everything, which sounds reductive. It sounds like a bad thing, but I don't know if it is necessarily a bad thing. Like, obviously, I'm also of the opinion it doesn't need to be a one-size-fits-all approach, but I also think that it's not necessarily a bad thing when you have someone overlording a franchise and keeping things on track. I don't know, Nick, as someone who I know revisited Harry Potter recently, how would you feel about them moving forward with someone else as sort of the main person, the main Kevin Feige? I mean, on one hand, it can reduce a lot of inconsistencies. I know the Harry Potter movies have had inconsistencies that bother me. For example, how drastically Hogwarts changed between movies 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. And then also you have full characters who completely change how they look, like Professor Flitwick. However, on the minus side, you won't be getting directors being able to express their creativity as effectively as you'd had like an Alfonso Cuarón do his third Harry Potter, or, you know, how David Yates kind of just transformed what the franchise was in 5 on. So what do you think about this one company approach that they're hinting at?
Honestly, I think it's something. Well, these are something companies should have been doing longer, like film. But then again, like these long, like universe franchise things are. I mean, the franchise has been around forever, but universes are still kind of a new thing that very few studios have done successfully.
Film universes, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I almost doubt, like, for example, for Lord of the Rings, I'm sure they want Peter Jackson to be their Kevin Feige. You know, just to not if he's not doing everyone, obviously, but he's like, oh well, I proved this story, and it'll be fun to do this story. I don't see that as a bad thing.
The one downside with that is you have the TV rights. That's with Amazon, so you have combating universes. It's
that's
the same
a whole
universe,
different topic.
But it's a different medium. So
that's a whole different topic. But I do find it really interesting that this is happening because of the game, especially since Eddie Redmayne, is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
He's been saying for a while that he doesn't think there will be any more Fantastic Beasts, even though it was planned as a 5-movie franchise.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there will be. I think the hint is that they're going to do something else with the Harry Potter franchise.
And that's the other problem I have with it. I think that was as far out of the park as they were going to try to knock it, even though it still had Dumbledore and each movie added more Hogwarts scenes. I think we're going to be super Hogwarts focused to a point where there isn't much story to tell in Harry Potter.
And I think I disagree. I think there's a lot of stories you could tell in Hogwarts. And here's what a lot of people have said sometimes. They're like, oh, what people love is Harry Potter. No.
I think it's Hogwarts.
It's not Harry Potter. It's not Harry Potter. It's Hogwarts. It's that ability to immerse yourself in this
What
world.
House are you? That's the thing. What house are like? It's all about the school.
No, that's what you're saying. You're not asking
He's
me.
not
You're
asking
saying
you.
what it is.
See, but you immediately wanted to answer, and I think because that's what it's all about. Is it's about the wizarding world. Harry, a big part of it, but as long as you're sticking, I mean, look at the game.
School age kids,
and it's set decades before the story of even Dumbledore. It's like 1800s or something like that, or early.
I think it's like the 1890s or something.
Something like that. You know, but it's decades prior, and
I can't wait to play this game when it comes.
I know,
me
too.
That's what it's about.
They pushed it back. Anyway,
no, they pushed it back. What? Where's it
coming
out?
Just by a few weeks. That's what I said.
I was already mad enough. You know what it was? I was literally counting down the days back in February, and I was getting ready, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so
thinking
excited."
It was the same release date.
Yeah, and I was like, "Let me go ahead and pre-order it." And I was like, "Where is it? Where? Why is it saying April? Why is it saying April? I don't. Oh no!" And I looked it up, and I was like, "Dang it!" And I didn't know they pushed it back. Oh, that's infuriating.
It was only a few weeks, but yeah,
I don't care.
You have
Nick.
to start your countdown, and you have to restart your little countdown widget.
Reset the clock
on your website. Yeah, Jonesy would have loved that.
But yeah, like I think this makes sense though, as far as going back to the main topic of doing this. It sounds derivative. That's the word I was looking for. It sounds derivative, and maybe it is, but franchise management, as we dig deeper into it, I think is important. I think fans have especially expressed how much they just need consistency. Harry Potter fans are just as picky as Star Wars fans, and I think more and more you realize, yeah, you need to appeal to those people in order to be successful. And I think having one person at the top, keeping track of the canon, keeping track of everything is really important. Yeah. So regarding Lord of the Rings, there's one more quote there. It's not as in depth, but it says David made a promise, quote unquote, early on to revive. David Zaslav, by the way, that's the head of Warner Brothers Discovery.
Zaslav.
Very early on to revitalize some of the iconic tentpole IP, and we're making progress. It's exciting to see how people are coming in and out and how the creative community is embracing this opportunity to work with us. That's going to bear fruit over time. So Warner Brothers, they're all in on franchises. In case it wasn't clear, they've always been all in, but they're going to be all inner.
It's kind of like the opposite of what Disney's doing right now.
I disagree.
Well, Disney's like, we'll do less content so we don't shove it down your throats. And then
what's going to
right
be
now, Warner Brothers is like,
content.
Pitch us every Lord of the Rings and every Harry Potter story you can come up with, and we'll release like one a year. Maybe
we don't know. We don't know how often it's going to be though. Like
they just seem to have different messages at their respective
I think they're
meetings.
the same message. I think they're the same message. The same message is we're going to focus on franchise. Probably produce fewer things that appeal more to a wider fan base. And then when it comes to like, maybe they're pitching a bunch of people, like people coming in with a lot of creative ideas, because there's a lot of room to have that creativity within Tolkien and Harry Potter as well. So it's like, it makes sense to me. And you probably have that same sort of feel with Star Wars or Marvel as well. Like you can kind of go in, there's a lot of breathing room in those franchises. Any last thoughts regarding Warner Brothers or Disney and their overall approach to filmmaking? Like I said, it kind of, I don't say it scares me, because I think you have a lot of creative stuff that's happening on streaming. You know, I think I realized more and more just how much I miss certain types of movies recently. When I saw the trailer for, what the hell was it? No Hard Feelings with Jennifer Lawrence. And I'm like, I miss raunchy comedies. Like, I miss those. And this looks like it'll be fun. And I remember back in the day where raunchy comedies were the big draws to the movie theaters in the 2000s. Not anymore. And I'm like, yeah, it would be nice to have more of those types of movies. It seems more and more we're really leaning into these franchise things. That's disappointing. Yes, we're getting those movies, but being able to see them on theaters and have them get main exposure, I think is sad. I don't know, Nick, where do you fall on that spectrum?
I agree. But I was just going to say, as my final comment on all this, if Disney and Warner Brothers want to learn a thing or two about franchises, go watch Scream 6 and listen to the movie Obsessive Characters franchise speech. I just wanted to tie it all together before we outied.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end.
One last thing.
Okay.
The Picard report.
Yep.
Still awesome. And that's the Picard report.
Good job, Picard report. Let's go ahead and close out this episode of Breaking Geek Radio, the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. But we're not the only podcast here on the Genreverse Podcast Networks. We have Daily Cup of Genre, Anime-Versal Reviews, AVR Squared, the Cantina, and Marvel Multiverse Mayhem. And I think that's everything that we have.
Genre Shot Trailer Reactions on the YouTube channel.
Genre Shot Trailer Reactions is the other one that I missed. I always have to miss one. And yeah, they're all here. And we're at, how many subscribers are we at currently?
2,723. Thank you.
So we're closing in on 2.8K. So if you're not subscribed to the Genreverse channel, and maybe you're listening to the podcast app and you're like, oh, I didn't realize you had a YouTube channel, go to the YouTube channel, give it a subscription. You see a lot of great stuff there, and you get to see our beautiful faces, us interacting with each other. Look, I'm going to poke Nick.
Ow! Fuck!
See, you wouldn't be able to see that on the podcast, so that's content. Nick, where can people find you?
At Kiki Nick Doll on Twitter and Instagram.
Kyle, thank you so much for helping out on the producerial front. Where can people find you?
At that Kyle Malone on Twitter, and doing anime stuff here on the Genreverse.
And you could find me at AJ Cerner Writer on Twitter and on TikTok. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for listening. And and watching. And we will see you all next week when we cover Shazam! Fury of the Gods. That's next week, right?
Fury of the Kings. Yeah.
Fury of the... Why do you keep saying that?
That's the Dubai release title. Remember, Danny shared it with us because they can't put gods in the
Hold
title.
on. Have you cut off Kyle yet? Have you finished? Okay,
No.
I have to share something with everyone. Here's the thing. Earlier this week when you wrote something, and I was like, I legitimately don't understand what you're saying. And I felt like I was taking crazy pills because no one else was acknowledging that what you said made absolutely no sense. Yeah, we're chatting with that in.
I've got brain damage, so I just thought it was me.
No, that definitely wasn't just you. Oh yeah, so here's what it was. Next week we can, no half, 2 though I don't wanna, see Fury of the Kings, LOL.
It was.
That was like his thing earlier in this show where I was like, am I having a stroke?
I felt like it
Not
too. I read
following.
it so many times. And it didn't help that I didn't remember what Fury of the Kings was. I'm like, I've never heard of Fury of the Kings. Like, what the hell is this?
Danny shared that on Instagram. I mean, on the Fury, just like it was not Cocaine Bear, it was like Bad Bear or some Crazy Bear. That he shows the poster for their Fury of the Gods, and it says Fury of the Kings. But
Yeah,
here's what it's supposed to
Dubai
sound
censorship.
like. Next week we can, and my commas are in the wrong place. Next
Yeah,
week
I
we
know.
can, no have to, though I don't want to see it, do Fury of the Kings.
You added words and you changed commas. Yeah, that's why school is important, kids. Though you have no excuse. You have not only gone through high school, you got a degree in screenwriting, Nick.
Typing on a phone is different than real writing.
That's fair. All right, well, that's it. I just wanted everyone to get a little peek on the back end there. Thank you so much for listening. Hasta lasagna. Don't get any on ya.
Mission accomplished.